In my family, my grandmother was raised in a Hawaiian language household, but was not encouraged. It is thought that it was more beneficial for us to leave our cultural things behind and become more Western and more American, more white, English-speaking citizens in order to be successful. So,
hello, my name is Emmy DeGrappa. Each week, we bring you stories asking our guests the question why. We learn about passion, purpose, and the human experience. Brought to you by Wyoming Humanities with the generous support of the Wyoming Community Foundation. This is What's Your Why? Today, we are talking to Paige Okamura. She is the host of 2 Hawaiian public radio shows and a graduate research assistant for the Institute of Hawaiian Language and Translation. Welcome, Paige.
Thank you, mahalo.
Did you grow up speaking Hawaiian?
No, I didn't. So if you don't know a lot about Hawaii's history, we lost a lot in the last 200 years. Actually, this year we celebrate or commemorate 200 years of the decision for our ruling chiefs at the time in 1819 to leave our traditional law system. And then so fast forward 200 years, the illegal overthrow in 1893, we have been so oppressed that we've lost a lot. And one of those big things was our language. So in my family, most people in Hawaii, they don't grow up speaking the language anymore by now. In my family, my grandmother was raised in a Hawaiian language household, but was not encouraged. It is thought that it was more beneficial for us to leave our cultural things behind and become more Western and more American, more white, English-speaking citizens in order to be successful. So already in my family, about a generation and a half, we had lost the language. So within maybe, 80 years, and our language was gone from my household. So I didn't grow up speaking it. I had to take it in high school and then in college.
And so would you say you're fluent now?
I'm fluent now and definitely functionally fluent, plus a little better. And that's actually quite the privilege today. We've had a resurgence since the 70s. We had the Hawaiian Renaissance, and Hawaiian language has made big strides in the last 40 years. We're not totally where we need to be, but the fact that I speak the language is actually quite the privilege today.
That is wonderful. So what was your journey? What was your passion? Why did you want to go into language research and translation?
I think we all grow up here, and even I grew up thinking that I would take Japanese and find a job in the tourism industry. That was sort of what we all thought would get us a job. And Japanese tourism, when I was younger, was such a big deal that I thought, and also I'm half Japanese. Then I took Japanese and I was awful at it. And in high school, they offered Hawaiian language at Punahou. And I thought, okay, well, I'll take it. Also, it's something, I grew up in a Hawaiian household. That's the realities. I grew up in a Hawaiian household with a Hawaiian worldview. So taking Hawaiian language was actually much easier than it was taking Japanese. And so I thought, okay, well, I can function in this world. I dance hula, so all these things connect for me. It wasn't anything foreign. It wasn't that difficult because I had already grown up in parts of it. And then when I graduated high school, I decided to stay home. I think a lot of locals and Hawaiians especially have a lot of responsibilities to our families home here. And it's hard for us to leave home. It's expensive. My grandfather passed away my senior year, and for my family that was really hard because he was the man of our household. So I decided to stay home, and Punahou is serves the top 2%, and Barack Obama's high school and all these things. So I grew up under the stigma of going to Punahou and being rich or anything like that, but my single mother struggled and paid for my tuition all on her own. I lived under the stereotype of Punahou graduates become doctors, lawyers, these big Fortune 500 company CEOs, and they do. That's true. However, that just wasn't me, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I was lucky Punahou really supported what we were good at. I wasn't good at math. I wasn't good at some things, but they knew I was good at culture. They knew I was good at my language. So I chose to stay home and major in Hawaiian language, which is also a privilege because you couldn't do that even 20 years ago.
That's true, and that's wonderful. That's really encouraging for a lot of reasons, especially in preserving your culture. So you have 2 radio shows.
Yes.
And describe them. What are their names, and describe what they're about?
So I do one show on the university radio stations, KTUH. It's on Thursdays from 4 to 6 p.m. It's called Kaileo Nui. It's a bilingual show, so it's in Hawaiian and English, and I play Hawaiian music. I always say good Hawaiian music, which is a very broad adjective. Traditional Hawaiian music, a lot of vinyl, a lot of LPs, newer contemporary things that I personally deem quality music. So that's every Thursday on that radio station. Then I also work for Hawaii Public Radio, which is our NPR affiliate here. So I host a late night show every Tuesday. It's called Bridging the Gap. I have the Tuesday night, but Bridging the Gap runs weeknights from 10 to midnight. That show's a little different. I have to follow, it's called a AAA. So every week or every show is a different genre or different theme. So I can't play to my strengths all the time. I can't just do a Hawaiian show. It's not a Hawaiian show. I can do Hawaiian shows every once in a while, but every week it's a different theme. This week I did a 90s throwback show because I went to the Backstreet Boys concert. But I didn't play any Backstreet Boys. It's still got to be quality. I mean, it's still public radio. I have to be classy. I have to behave. So those are the 2 shows that I have.
I love that. You have to be classy.
I have to behave and I have to be classy.
What does the AAA stand for?
I think it's like adult alternative, something like that. It's a little bit dated. It's like a technical genre term, but it basically was sort of the, it's not jazz, it's not classical. It was everything else.
Well, how did you get into radio?
I actually got into radio because at KTUH on Sunday afternoons, there's a Hawaiian language show. So it's 3 hours. It's 3 to 6 p.m. It's called Kipukaleo. And it's only in Hawaiian. It plays Hawaiian music. It's only in Hawaiian. And when I was an undergrad, one of my professors who started the show or is one of the DJs in a long line to sort of curate that show, needed new hosts. So she had asked me and a classmate of mine to take it over. And so we kind of, in a very short span, applied with the sole purpose to do this show. And it's the one show that KTUH has always given priority to. So it's currently the only show on an FM station here that's in Hawaiian, which is great, also unfortunate because there's only one. And so I started there, and there were 2 of us, and it didn't make sense to have 2 DJs and only one show. If you have 2 bodies, you should be able to do 2 shows. So I broke off to do my own show. And I chose to make it different and have it bilingual. Kipukaleo is very staunch. It's only in Hawaiian, which is great. But I would meet people who listen to that show every week and always tell me, I love that show. I have no idea what you're saying, but I love that show. And that's great. But I also think we have to start building access points for people. There are some things we talk about those songs that are so important and they're so interesting. They have 200 years of history to them that I don't want people to miss. So I thought, well, if I do this and I do it in both languages, then people are not missing out on the educational aspect, but I'm still exposing them to language. I'm still opening an access point for them to be interested enough to start to dig on their own without me having to hold their hand through it every time. Also, side note, when I don't want them to know what I'm saying, I just say it in Hawaiian. It's usually when I'm being really sassy, but that's the perk.
That makes me think that where we live in Wyoming and in other parts of the United States, there's large Spanish-speaking populations. Do you have a Spanish-speaking population in Hawaii?
Funny thing, I don't know if you have noticed, we don't have very good Spanish or Mexican food. So that usually reflects the demographic of our population. So we have high school Spanish students. You know, Spanish is still one of the more popular languages to take, but we don't have a heavy Spanish or Latin population. So not a lot, few and far between, where Spanish is their native language or the language spoken at home.
Right, and it's just the opposite, I guess, where I live in Wyoming, where we try and do, well, we have Spanish radio, we translate a lot of our materials whenever we can into Spanish.
All of our materials are translated in Spanish. All of our legal documents, you won't find a single one translated in Hawaiian, but Hawaiian is our state language. I think we're the only state that has two state languages, so English and Hawaiian. And you will not find a legal document that you could go to the courthouse today, go fill something out. I can write my checks in Hawaiian, and the bank has to honor it, but that means the teller probably has to look it up. It's a big issue because a lot of people today, I don't know if you guys know some of our modern day issues, but Hawaiians will go to court and insist on representing themselves or speaking in Hawaiian, and the judges will, I don't know what the correct term is, but they don't allow it. They won't recognize it. I mean, they will stand in front of you and you can tell them, this is the language of this state. It is a state official language, and we are not allowed to speak it in a courtroom because the judges they can't understand. So they require a translator, or it's sort of a strange
relationship.
Definitely. It's a product of our occupation. You can go to any legal city office. All of the verbiage will be translated in Spanish, Filipino, 3 dialects of Filipino, Japanese, a handful, there's a lot, but none of it in Hawaiian. So that's one strand in our very complicated political history, but it all ties into why language is important to us today.
Absolutely. And I really commend you for preserving your culture and your language.
Mahalo.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Your Why? Brought to you by Wyoming Humanities with support from Wyoming Community Foundation and generous supporters like you. To learn more, go to thinkwhy.org, subscribe, and never miss a show.